Noah and Frank stumbled out of a bar after a long night of drinking and jumped into Noah's car. He started it up, and off they went. A few minutes later, a soft tapping came from the passenger window. Frank turned, saw an old man's face staring in, and screamed, "Noah, there's a ghost at the window!" Panicked, Noah slammed his foot down on the accelerator, but the face stayed right there. Trembling, Frank cracked the window open. "Well, what do you want?" The old man calmly asked, "Got any tobacco?" Desperate to get rid of him, Frank handed over a cigarette and yelled, "Go, go, go!" Noah floored it. After a while, they laughed it off. "That was weird, but don't worry," Noah said. "We're doing 80 now." Then, tap, tap, tap. The old man appeared again. Frank screamed, "He's back!" and cautiously rolled the window down. "You got a light?" the old man asked. Frank chucked a lighter out the window. "Drive faster." Now doing 100 miles an hour, they tried to shake the terror until another soft tap came from the window. Frank, on the verge of a meltdown, rolled it down and shouted, "What now?" The old man smiled. "You boys need help getting out of the mud?" A man bursts into a police station, tears streaming down his face, and rushes to the sergeant at the desk. Husband, sobbing. "My wife is missing. She went out to rescue people from the flood yesterday and never came home." Sergeant. "Okay, sir. Let's start with some details. What's her height?" Husband. Not too short, not too tall, maybe around 5 feet." Sergeant. "Weight?" Husband. Not skinny, but not really big either." Sergeant. "Eye color?" Husband. "Brownish, I think. Never really paid attention." Sergeant. "Hair color?" Husband. "Changes all the time. Could be dark brown or red, maybe blonde." Sergeant. "What was she wearing?" Husband. "Oh, pants or a skirt? Maybe shorts. I'm not sure." Sergeant sighs. "Okay. What kind of car was she driving?" Husband, wiping his eyes. "She took my Jeep." Sergeant. "And what kind of Jeep is it?" The husband suddenly straightens up, takes a deep breath, and launches into a passionate, detailed breakdown. It's a 2010 Rubicon with a Sprintex supercharger, Diablo Sport T1000 Trinity programmer, Terraflex Falcon 3.3 shocks, 1350 RE real drive shafts, Method 105 bead locks, Toyo 37, X 13.5, tires, Olympic off-road bumpers, rock-hard cage, Posian Spider sliders, Terraflex Monster HD track bar, wild boar grill, rigid LED lights, a worn 10K winch in the front, 8K in the rear, bar-tacked seat covers, a Tuffy security drawer, Terraflex Alpine long control arms, 5.1 13 gears, Bushwhacker rear armor, a 50-flat LED light bar with an S-Pod switch, and... At this point, the sobbing turns into a full-blown meltdown. The sergeant, visibly moved, hands him a tissue. Sergeant, softly, "Don't worry, buddy, we'll find your Jeep." A 16-year-old boy comes home driving a brand-new Porsche. His parents explode. "Where did you get that car?" The boy shrugs. "I bought it today." "With what money?" his father demands. "I know how much a Porsche costs." "Well," the boy says, "this one cost me $15. The parents go from shocked to furious. Who on earth would sell a Porsche for $15? "The lady up the street," the boy replies. "She just moved in, saw me riding my bike, and asked if I wanted to buy it." His mother gasps. "She must be crazy. Who knows what she'll do next? Paul, go up there and find out what's going on. And you, young man, should be ashamed of taking advantage of someone like that." So the father storms up the street and finds the woman calmly planting flowers in her yard. "Excuse me, ma'am," he says. I'm the father of the boy you just sold a Porsche to for $15. May I ask why? The woman looks up with a smile. Oh, sure. See, this morning I got a call from my husband. I thought he was on a business trip, but turns out he ran off to Hawaii with his secretary, and he's not coming back. She pats the soil gently. He told me he was stranded and begged me to sell his new Porsche and wire him the money. She dusts off her hands. So I did. A rich man was cruising in his brand new Jaguar, fully loaded with every luxury imaginable. As he pulled up to a red light, whistling to himself, a tiny Volkswagen Beetle rolled up beside him. Feeling smug, the rich man couldn't resist bragging. This is the finest luxury car money can buy. It has ABS, airbags for every passenger, automatic climate control, an onboard computer, photochromatic glass, a minibar, a satellite TV in the roof, and so much more. Before he could finish, the Beetle owner cut him off. That's nice, but does it have a hair blower? The light turned green and the Beetle sped off. The rich man sat there, suddenly feeling like his expensive ride was missing something. That very day, he had a high-end hair blower installed. A few days later, he searched for that Beetle and finally spotted it at another red light. Eager to show off, he jumped out and knocked on the window. The Beetle owner rolled it down. Yeah? He asked impatiently. I got that hair blower too, the rich man announced proudly. The Beetle owner nodded. Nice. But do you have this? He gestured to a tiny microwave oven built into his dashboard. The rich man's confidence wavered. No. I have to admit I don't. Well, come back when you've got a real car, then, the Beetle owner scoffed before zooming away. Determined, the rich man returned to the dealership and had a microwave and an oven installed in his Jaguar. A few days later, he spotted the Beetle again, this time parked on the side of the road. Its windows were fogged up and steam was escaping from a half-open crack. Curious, the rich man rushed over and knocked on the window. After a moment, the Beetle owner poked his head out. Grinning, the rich man declared, I installed an oven. The Beetle owner sighed. That's nice. But did you really have to interrupt my shower to tell me? A nun gets into a taxi and notices that the very handsome cab driver keeps glancing at her in the mirror. After a while, she asks, My son, why do you keep staring at me? The driver hesitates. I have a question, but I don't want to offend you. She smiles kindly. My child, after all these years as a nun, I've seen and heard just about everything. Nothing you say will offend me. The driver takes a deep breath. Well, I've always had a fantasy of kissing a nun. The nun thinks for a moment and then replies, Let's see what we can do about that. 2 conditions. 1, you must be single. 2, you must be Catholic. Excited, the driver exclaims, Yes, I'm single and Catholic. All right, the nun says. Pull into that alley. He eagerly obliges, and the nun gives him a kiss so passionate it would make a hooker blush. As they drive off, the cab driver suddenly bursts into tears. My dear child, the nun says, what's wrong? Through his sobs, the driver confesses, Forgive me, sister, for I have sinned. I lied. I'm married, and I'm Jewish. The nun pats his shoulder with a chuckle. That's okay. My name's Kevin, and I'm on my way to a costume party. A few decades ago, a man and his wife were driving cross-country from New York to California. Watching his fuel gauge dip, he decided to stop at the next gas station. About 15 minutes later, he spotted a mobile station and pulled up to the high-octane pump. The attendant walked over. What can I do for y'all? Fill her up with high test, the driver said. As the attendant pumped the gas, he eyed the car curiously. What kind of car is this? I ain't never seen one like it before. The driver puffed up with pride. This, my friend, is a 1999 Cadillac DeVille. Really? What's it got? The driver leaned in. Everything? Power steering, power seats, power sunroof, power mirrors, AM/FM radio with a 10-disc CD changer in the trunk, 100 watts per channel, 8-speaker stereo, rack and pinion steering, disc brakes all around, leather interior, digital dashboard, and best of all, an 8.8-liter V12 engine. The attendant whistled. Man, that's some car. Sure is. How much for the gas? $30.17. The driver pulled out his money clip, peeled off a $20 and a $10, then fished around in his pocket for change. Along with the coins, a few golf tees tumbled out. The attendant frowned. What are those little wooden things? The driver smiled. That's what I put my balls on when I drive. The attendant's eyes went wide. Damn! Those Cadillac people think of everything. A hip young man buys himself a brand new Ferrari 599 GTO, nearly $500,000 worth of pure speed. Feeling like a king, he takes it for a spin and pulls up at a red light. An old man, about 75 years old, pulls up beside him on a beat-up moped. He eyes the sleek Ferrari and asks, "What kind of car you got there, sonny?" The young man grins. This? It's a Ferrari 599 GTO. Cost me almost $500,000. The old man whistles. That's a lot of money. What makes it so special? Limited edition, insane speed, top of the line everything, the young man boasts. The old man nods. Mind if I take a look inside? Go ahead, the young guy says. The old man leans in, takes a good look, and nods. Mighty fine car, all right. Just then, the light turns green. The young man smirks. Time to show off. He slams the gas, 0 to 160 mph in seconds. But suddenly, in his rearview mirror, he spots a tiny dot getting bigger. Fast. Whoosh! Something blazes past him at lightning speed. What the hell was that? Before he can react, he sees the dot again, coming back toward him. Whoosh! The blur flies by again, heading the other way. No way! He squints. That looked like the old guy on the moped. Before he can make sense of it, the dot reappears one more time, but this time, kablam! The moped slams straight into the back of his Ferrari, crumpling the rear end. The young man jumps out and rushes to the wrecked old man. Oh my God! Are you okay? Is there anything I can do? The old man, barely conscious, whispers, Please, unhook my suspenders from your side view mirror. A young guy, always eager to experiment, came up with a wild idea. He wanted to see just how fast a bicycle could go before it became uncontrollable. He turned to his buddy, who owned a beat-up old Chevelle, and asked, Mind if I tie my bike to your bumper? I want to test something. His friend shrugged. Sure, why not? So they set up a simple system. 1 ring of the bike bell meant speed up, 2 rings meant hold steady, and rapid ringing meant slow the hell down. With that, they hit the road. At first, everything was smooth. The Chevelle gradually climbed past 60 mph, and the cyclist held on, surprisingly stable. Then, trouble. An orange Camaro pulled up alongside them, revving its engine. The Chevelle's driver, suddenly feeling competitive, completely forgot about his buddy on the bike and hit the gas. Meanwhile, up ahead, Officer John sat in his cruiser, radar gun ready. He heard the roar of engines before his radar flashed 105 mph. Grabbing his radio, he called it in. Dispatch, you're not going to believe this. We've got a Camaro and a Chevelle drag racing down Highway 3, and some lunatic on a bicycle ringing his bell and waving his arms trying to pass them. A guy goes to Las Vegas to gamble and loses every last dollar. Broke and stranded, he waves down a cab and pleads with the driver. I swear I'll pay you next time. Here's my number. The cabbie scoffs. Get the hell out of my cab. So, the guy walks all the way to the airport. Months later, he returns to Vegas. This time, he wins big. Bags full of cash, he heads to the airport and spots a long line of cabs. At the very end, the same driver who kicked him out. He grins. Time for revenge. He hops in the first cab. How much to the airport? $15. Great. And how much for you to sleep with me on the way there? Get the hell out of my cab. He repeats this all the way down the line, each driver furiously kicking him out. Finally, he reaches the last cab, the jerk from last time. The driver doesn't recognize him. Where to? The airport. How much? $15. The guy hands him $15, hops in, and grins as they slowly drive past every furious cabbie glaring from their windows. He leans out the window, flashing them a big thumbs up. After 20 years as a gynecologist, a doctor grew tired of malpractice insurance, endless paperwork, and the stress of his job. Even though medicine was all he knew, he decided to follow a long-time interest, becoming a mechanic. He enrolled in a technical college, took evening classes, and studied diligently. When the final practical exam came, he carefully disassembled and reassembled an engine with precision. A few days later, he got his results, 150%. Thinking it must be a mistake, he called his instructor. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but how did I score 150%? The instructor chuckled. Well, you took the engine apart perfectly, 50%. You put it back together flawlessly, another 50%. And the extra 50%? That's because you did it all through the muffler, and I've never seen that done before. On a particularly windy day, a rabbi was walking when a sudden gust blew his hat off his head. He chased after it, but the wind kept carrying it farther and farther away. A young non-Jewish man, seeing the rabbi struggling, ran after the hat, caught it, and returned it. Grateful, the rabbi gave him $20 and a heartfelt blessing. Excited by his good fortune, the young man headed to the racetrack, figuring that with the rabbi's blessing, he might get lucky. Looking at the program, he noticed a horse named Top Hat running at 100-to-1 odds. It's a sign, he thought, and bet all $20 on it. To his amazement, Top Hat won. For the next race, he spotted a horse named Bowler at 30-to-1. Thinking it was another lucky sign, he bet all his winnings. Bowler won, too. When he got home, he excitedly told his father, Dad, I turned $20 into a fortune, but then I lost it all. What happened? His father asked. Well, in the final race, there was a heavy favorite named Chateau. Since Chateau means hat in French, I figured he was a sure thing and bet everything on him. His father sighed. You fool. Hat in French is chapeau, not chateau. After a pause, the father asked, So, who did win? The son groaned. Some Spanish horse named Sombrero. Jack Nicklaus is sitting in a bar having a drink with Stevie Wonder. Nicholas turns to him and says, So how's the singing career going? Stevie Wonder nods. Not too bad. My latest album cracked the top 10, so I can't complain. How's the golf? Nicholas sighs. Not too bad either. I'm not winning as much as I used to, but I'm still making a decent living. Been working on my swing. Stevie says, Yeah, I get that. When my swing goes off, I take a break, clear my head, and when I come back, it's usually fixed. Nicholas stares at him. Wait, you play golf? Stevie smiles. Of course. Been playing for years. Nicholas, completely dumbfounded, stammers, But, Stevie, you're blind. How on earth do you play? Stevie chuckles. Oh, no offense taken. It's actually pretty simple. My caddy stands in the middle of the fairway and calls out to me. I listen to his voice and hit the ball toward him. When I reach the ball, he moves closer to the green and calls out again. Nicholas is amazed. That's incredible. But how do you putt? Stevie grins. Same idea. My caddy gets down near the hole and calls me with his head on the ground. I just aim for his voice. Nicholas, still in shock, asks, What's your handicap? Stevie shrugs. I play off scratch. Nicholas shakes his head. That's unbelievable. We've got to play around sometime. Stevie nods. Sure, but I only play for money. Never less than $100,000 a hole. Nicholas thinks it over for a moment and finally says, All right, I'm in. When do you want to play? Stevie leans back, grinning. Any night next week works for me. An American and a Russian wrestler were set to square off for the Olympic gold medal. Before the match, the American's trainer pulled him aside. Listen, we've studied this guy inside and out. He's never lost a match because of his signature move, the pretzel hold. Whatever you do, don't let him get you in it. If he does, you're finished. The wrestler nodded. Got it, coach. The match began. The two circled each other looking for an opening. Suddenly, the Russian lunged, grabbed the American, and locked him in the dreaded pretzel hold. A groan rippled through the crowd. The trainer buried his face in his hands. It was over. But then, a scream. A moment later, a roar from the crowd. The trainer looked up just in time to see the Russian flying through the air. He hit the mat with a thud, and the American collapsed on top of him for the pin. The place erupted. The Americans had won. Back in the locker room, the stunned trainer asked, How in the world did you escape that hold? No one's ever done it before. The wrestler shook his head. Coach, I was ready to tap out, but then, right in front of me, I saw his, family jewels. I had nothing to lose, so with my last bit of strength, I stretched out my neck and bit down as hard as I could. The trainer's eyes widened. So that's what made him let go? Not exactly. You'd be amazed how strong you get when you bite your own. Three friends, a rabbi, a Hindu priest, and a lawyer, were traveling through the countryside when their car broke down. They walked to a nearby farmhouse and asked the farmer if they could spend the night. The farmer scratched his head. I'd be happy to help, but I only have room for 2 of you inside. One of you will have to sleep in the barn. The rabbi smiled. No problem. My people wandered the desert for 40 years. I can handle 1 night in a barn. He grabbed his things and headed out. But just minutes later, there was a knock at the door. The farmer opened it to find the rabbi standing there. I'm sorry, but there's a pig in the barn. Pigs are unclean in my faith. I just can't do it. The Hindu priest nodded. No worries, my friend. I will go instead. He took his things and walked out. A few minutes later, another knock at the door. The farmer sighed and opened it to find the Hindu priest standing there. I appreciate your kindness, he said, but there is a cow in the barn. In my faith, cows are sacred. I cannot sleep in their presence. That left only the lawyer. Grumbling, he grabbed his things. Fine, I'll go. He stomped out to the barn and shut the door behind him. The house finally fell quiet, but then another knock at the door. The exhausted farmer groaned, got up, and opened the door. Standing outside were the pig and the cow. It was early morning, and an old man in his 80s got up and started putting on his coat. His wife looked at him and asked, Where are you going? He replied, I'm going to the doctor. Why? Are you sick? She asked. No, he said. I'm going to get me some of those new Viagra pills. At that, his wife slowly got up from her rocker and started putting on her sweater. He turned to her and asked, Where are you going? I'm going to the doctor, too, she said. Why? He asked. She looked him square in the eye and replied, If you're going to start using that rusty old thing again, then I'm going to get a tetanus shot. A ridiculously handsome man believed it was his God-given duty to find the most beautiful woman and marry her so they could create children of unparalleled perfection. Determined, he searched high and low along the East Coast, but found no one worthy. So he headed west. One day, he met a farmer with 3 stunning daughters, so breathtaking that he nearly fainted. Excited, he explained his mission to the farmer and asked for permission to marry one of them. The farmer shrugged. "They're all looking to get married, so take your pick." The man took the first daughter on a date. The next morning, the farmer asked, "So, what do you think?" The man hesitated. "Well, she's amazing, but just a wee bit," almost imperceptibly pigeon-toed. The farmer nodded. "Try the second one." So, the man took the second daughter out. The next morning, the farmer asked again, "How was it?" The man sighed. "She's incredible, but just a wee bit. Barely noticeable, cross-eyed." The farmer nodded. "Well, there's still one more." So the man took the third daughter on a date. The next morning, he burst into the house, grinning. "She's perfect, absolutely flawless. She's the one I want to marry." The wedding was held immediately. Months later, their baby was born. But when the man saw the baby in the nursery, his jaw hit the floor. The kid was ugly, like shockingly ugly. Horrified, he ran to his father-in-law. "How? She was perfect. I checked everything. What happened?" The farmer sighed. "Well, she was just a wee bit, not that you'd hardly notice, pregnant when you met her." A big city lawyer was representing a railroad company in a lawsuit filed by an old rancher. The rancher's prize bull had gone missing from the railroad section of land, and all he wanted was to be paid a fair price. The case was set to be heard by the justice of the peace in the back room of the general store. Before the hearing, the slick lawyer pulled the rancher aside and tried to settle out of court. With his best big city charm, he haggled and pressured until the rancher finally agreed to take half of what he was asking. After the rancher signed the paperwork and pocketed the check, the lawyer smirked. "Hate to break it to you, old-timer, but I totally bluffed you. I couldn't have won that case. The engineer was asleep, the fireman was in the caboose, and I didn't have a single witness. You never would have lost." The rancher grinned, tipped his hat, and said, "Well, I'll tell you what, son. I was a little worried about winning that case myself." The lawyer frowned. "Why is that?" "'Cause that bull came home this morning." "I got pulled over today." Cop. "License and registration, sir? You're showing signs of being drunk." Me. "Officer, I swear I haven't had a drop." Cop. "All right, then let's do a quick test. You're driving down a dark road and you see 2 lights in the distance. What is it?" Me. "A car?" Cop. "Of course. But what kind? A Chevy, Dodge, or Ford?" Me. "How the hell should I know?" Cop. "Just as I thought. You've been drinking." Me. "But I didn't drink anything." Cop. "All right, one more. Same dark road, but now you see just 1 light. What is it?" Me. "A motorcycle." Cop. "Exactly. But is it a Honda, a Harley, or a Kawasaki?" Me. "How would I know that?" Cop. Definitely drunk." Me. "All right, my turn. You're driving down the highway at midnight, and you see a woman on the roadside, miniskirt, fishnets, high heels, and a bra for a top. What do you call her?" Cop. "A hooker, obviously." Me. Sure. But is it your wife, your daughter, or your mother?" Long story short, I have a court date next month. A woman had just totaled her car in a horrific accident. Miraculously, she managed to pry herself from the wreckage without a scratch and was applying fresh lipstick when a state trooper arrived. Trooper. "My God, your car looks like an accordion stomped on by an elephant. Are you okay, ma'am?" Woman, drunk as a skunk. Oh, I'm just fine, officer. Trooper. How in the world did this happen? Woman. Officer, it was the strangest thing. I was driving along when, out of nowhere, a tree jumps in front of me. So I swerved right. Another tree. I swerved left. Another tree. Right. Tree, left, tree. It was like a whole forest appearing out of thin air. Trooper, squinting at her. Ma'am, there isn't a tree on this road for 30 miles. Woman. Then what the hell was I dodging? Trooper, sighs. Your air freshener, ma'am. It was swinging back and forth.